Yura, hello, welcome to all of our listeners. At least four of them right now. My name is Andrea Magneski, and I'm here with my co-conspirators Andrew Harmon and Kenny Schwed. Bell. I think I
It's fine.
completely destroyed that. And we have a very special guest, Kim Kao. We're here of stories of facilitating software design and architecture. And Kim, you're gonna tell us a little bit about what is it that we're gonna hear about, a little bit about yourself, and then we'll hear the full story. I'm so excited.
Okay, yes. Yeah, thanks for having me today. Hello, everyone. My name is Kim Kao. I live in Taiwan. And this is the great opportunities to have a chance to link up the worldwide DDD practitioners with you guys. Today, I think I would like to share a bit personal experiences while I was engaging with my customers. Before that, I would like to put down some background for myself. I am a solution architect manager working with AWS for around 8 years to nine years. And before that, prior to joining AWS, I am a so- software architect. My job and the goal is to help people to really understand technology could support the business. But in the past decades, my opinions was really learned from, the classic methodologies and the books, from the computer science. So the traditional approaches like UP, RUP, the object-oriented stuff, that we are really familiar with, right? And during the decades, I always think about the software is everything and software could deal with any problem until I engaged and learned from different perspectives of the architects. For example, people may have the different knowledges from different perspectives. A really interesting point about the architect, not sure everybody really understand what's the meanings of architect. If you talk to different people, they have different opinions. So when I joined the AWS, I found that the name solutions architect not really means to, software architect. It means everything. You have to really understand the lead, like for example, infrastructure, networking, databases, security, etc., etc. Then I realized, holy, the world is too wide to learn. And beyond this, when I have to manage the conversation with different stakeholders, like, the decision makers, the product owner, and in different level of the working level participant who joined your meeting, you cannot even well handle their desires or their challenges. Then I found the so-called solution architect or even architect couldn't be defined by a single view of the points. So that's brought me step into another journey. So today I want to share with you a short story about how to engage with my client to tell a story from the vision to implement the solutions. I would say the customer is a retail customer. I still remember the date that the GM told me, yeah, King, we were under a certain situation. We have the heavy impact from pandemic and, some of the competitors, they are looking for a chance to beat us. We're almost down. So we want to have a different approach to raise our revenue growth or even to have better performance. So did you find out any way to make some differences? The GM told me, yeah, we tried. We also consult with other cloud vendors, but I cannot mention those vendors name right now. But the answer was like, the GM told me, if if the retail company would like to deal with the operation issue and would like to gain more business operation efficiency, the only way is to use Kubernetes. Don't left. That's a crazy answer I had ever heard of it. And I was like, okay, given you know the answer, why you reach out to me? I would say, okay, so definitely containerize or the technology couldn't drive you to the right direction. And then the team under the GM nodding their heads frequently and heavily. Okay. So then I started to have more conversation. I'm really new to your team, but could you share with me how do you figure out the pain points? Even though under pandemic, several retail customers, several retail business getting growth because the online e-commerce could be very bad, very good, right? Because everybody just brought something online. However, they just shopping, their business was going down because their infrastructure was not good enough to afford that pressure. But it is not the key point because the complexity of the services and the keywording like we always mentioned in the DDD world, the monoliths or the big multiple, right? Most of the team members told me the system they were built before 20 years ago, none of the employees really understand how these systems were built, and nobody handle and control the whole things. So yeah, this is a huge challenge. Nobody knows what the content is. So I try to engage with the clients and tell them, maybe we don't really start from cloud journey, but maybe let's take a little bit further to have an impact mapping at first. If you really want to bring in the business value, then we have to figure out who are the stakeholders you are really want to take care. So we try to identify the key passes, identify the key concerns from different stakeholders. After the impact mapping, we have the deliverables. Then just go through that deliverables to think about, okay, these items or the list might be the potential enhancement point. Then we can deep dive into the potential system design to see what we can do. So eventually, we started to have more conversation like the the series discussion. They share with me their code base. And I mean, to have a lightweight observation to see how the complexity is. And then we found, it is impossible to resolve in a short time because too many different coding style, too many different architecture style mixing. So we try to have more user story conversation and bringing some event main practices. Eventually, we figured out maybe in the retail selling journey, the better way is to start from merchant management. Because once you decide to publish your merchant on the store, then it's just bringing the whole business process. If the pain point is starting from the merchant with several different selling policies, then we have to start from the main point. Otherwise, you just try to decorating everything on top of the weakness, the pillars. That was quite dangerous. So this is the very interesting experiences. We eventually have the first draft of the so-called moving out merchant management system from the legacy one, but move to cloud-ready microservices design. But I mean, this is not fully integrated, but at least we know how to fix it, how to start the conversation with the different team. I still remember that day, I held 2 days event Somi workshop plus one impact mapping workshop. there were around 40 or 50 people join the meeting, join the whole day workshop. Several project manager, product owner, and some sales assistants, they just sit in and try to really understand how's the journey they were working on day by day. And I probably know, wow, this is the first time they do have the whole team sit down together and figure out what's going on and how can they start the fixing journey. Yeah, that's it.
Cool. Thanks. So the first thing that pops to mind is this was during Corona and online, I guess, right?
Yeah, then under pandemic area, I try to do it offline because the time period is a little bit different in Taiwan. We didn't get impact immediately, so we still people wear masks and talk to each other.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because 40 people online, that's really a challenge from the pandemic.
Yeah.
So another thing that came to mind is started with a vendor just go to Kubernetes and it fixes everything, right?
Yeah.
I've seen that happening before. Just put more hardware to the point. Did you need it to convince your general manager, or was your story enough to help them understand, like, oh, this is someone new, this is someone different? So how did you convince that actually because this is what we get a lot of questions. You do 2 days event storming and some impact mapping. That is with 40 people. That's a lot of investment, right? And
Yes.
so could you explain a little bit, how would you convince or tell people to come and that it's valuable instead of, it's easy, right? Just deploy Kubernetes and let's go. Fixes your problem.
Yeah. And then that's quite interesting. I still remember that the GM told me, they received the advices from other cloud vendor. They told them to resolve the issue is try to add more hardware like the Kubernetes. But I told them, if you found this is the only way to go, the fastest way to go, then just go. But you cannot afford it day by day, weekly by weekly, because most of the e-commerce company in Taiwan, they held the series of the promotion campaign. And with the business growth, you can imagine that once you held the company, you have more than 1 million members, active members day by day. And then you have to held promotions maybe around 3 hours or 4 hours. Wow. How many activities will be happening there? And you even cannot have a clear mathematical calculation to figure out how many hardware you have to prepare. That's incredible. But especially at that moment, the retail customer, they held the whole services in a premises. So while you decided to buy the hardware, you have to wait until maybe 3 months or 6 months. Then that is impossible. So hardware is not the only way to go. Even you can move to cloud, but still a challenge because you have to pay a lot until you start the business. So we should have a deeper look on why these solutions or why all of the existing workloads is really suffering you. What's the pain point? If there is any complexity combined with some ambiguity, the ambiguity here not only mentioned about the system, but also the motivation. Sometimes the marketer, they just want to try to do some promotion, but they may not really know what's the return because my leader told me to do, then I just do it. Wow, that's incredible.
You made it very factual. And I remember Max saying, compared to what? And the compared to what you make very factual, right? From what I hear. You made very, that's a nice approach.
I always wanted to ask Kim a little bit more about, you mentioned impact mapping, and that's like, so everyone talks about event storming. There's a bunch of things we talk about all the time, but impact mapping is another powerful thing that I've used it once, maybe, but not as much as I should have done. Can you quickly just kind of give us an idea of, because that's kind of one of the key points you're making, right? It's like, we could do a lot of stuff, but will it have an impact? And the impact mapping is a way to say, if we did this, what do we expect the outcome to be? And that helps people understand. So can you maybe explain a little bit more about just about a little, like maybe not without the details of what you did for this person, this customer, but the benefits that it gives to everybody. Because like Kenny says, you've had 40, you did all of the hard work of bringing everyone together. So
Yeah,
bringing them together and helping them understand what the impact, what the options were and what the impacts might be was kind of interesting. So can you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, thanks, Andrew, to raise the question. Basically, I try to group the whole audience into maybe 2 parts or 3 parts. As for the impact mapping, I try to invite the decision makers and some functional leaders. Because impact mapping, for me, is to really understand how the change would really beneficial to whom. For example, most of the time, my client reach out to me or my team. They just want to resolve the obviously issues they have seen. However, the symptom you have seen might not really be the root cause. So, couple of times I try to check. Okay, if you know the daily transaction just turning down, is this really an issue, or the question behind the question, what might be the really beneficial one you want to resolve? So I asked the GM to send down the promotion team, the sales team, and the engineering team leader to go with me. If the goal is raise the daily transaction amount, then what's the symptom you have figured out? And then we have to define the goal. We have the goal. If we want to raise, for example, to bring in more revenue, monthly over month, MOM or YY, but during pandemic, I think we can only look for MOM because it's maybe feasible to do. So we have to get a goal. Okay, perhaps we want to increase the MOM revenue growth in maybe 10 or 20%. Okay. So who would be your supporter? And the things was very interesting. Suddenly, they were, just like fallen into a silent space. They cannot figure out who are the supporters. Wow, that's a surprise. Because they getting used to listen to the order, listen to the commands to do something. However, at a point, while we are using the impact mapping approach, we have to engage and encourage every attendee to think about you are the boss. You are the decision maker. You have to ask somebody to support you because the goal is company-wise. If everybody wants to survive, then you have to jump in. So eventually we identify some key stakeholders like the marketing team. They really understand the user behaviors from their daily tracking. Like the Google GA analytics could well track the anonymous users' behaviors. And then they can also engage with the inventory system manager. They do really understand how's the merchant, the consumption rate, right? And then we also have to identify the key decision maker from inventory logistics. They do understand how long it would take to ship the per merchant. So you eventually understand how is the transaction rate and the cash show up rate, and et cetera. So this is very interesting. I was saying this is not a technical conversation, but also lead us to think about how eager you are. If you already want the business growth, we have to jump in. And then I found that I was a businessman, not a technical guy.
Yeah, that's really interesting because I think the two are really closely related, right? You can't solve all these problems, like you said at the start, by just throwing more hardware at it if you don't understand the problems.
Yeah.
Go, Andrea.
Yeah. So my question was exactly that. And so something made you realize that you need to understand the stakeholder and understand the domain and help people make kind of probably quite difficult strategic decisions. So how is this the point at which for you was like, oh, I really need to understand the domain? And how was that process? If this was the time that for you everything started clicking, then how was that process of, oh, now I'm not just technical, but what does that mean? Because I think a lot of people that are in that position, that are either close to technical leadership or in technical leadership, they find it extremely hard to accept that just knowing a lot of technical stuff is not going to cut it. And it's like, it's you need to actually do everything. You need to have the technical chops, and you need to be able to talk to the business in their language.
Yeah, exactly. To be honest, until today, I'm still not an expertise in retail, be honest. But the approach I took in the past years in that case was like, I pay a lot of attention to really engage the audiences. For example, a few years ago, I held the DDD Taiwan annual conference for years, and Kenny and some of the speakers had also joined the online conference. In that year, I sent out 5 tickets to the clients. I asked them to join the annual conference to really understand how technology will be well utilized along with the business understanding. Because domain-driven design might be one of the approach. I won't say this is the only one, but I want to let them know there are several different roles who are really participated in DDD community. So some of the members from that company, they just joined the annual conference, and they found, wow, there are several project manager, product owner, and even UI UX designer. They joined the annual community, and they found the topics quite interesting. And some of them feedback that's okay. Seems like there should be an approach to help us to connect each one of us to have maybe to come out the language that we could really understand on the same page. But in that moment, they couldn't speak out the ubiquitous language. But I know what they were mentioned. So I was like, okay, they were fallen in the trap. I said, I want to make sure they were very interested in this. So eventually, I have more conversation to talk to a team. I'm not the expert in retail, but I would like to share with you a systematical approach to figure out the connections, to figure out the relationships between the decision you made as is and target it to be solution that you want. So the conjunction role is just the role that I played in that case.
That makes sense. I think we can kind of relate with your journey. I love engaging the audience and managing and directing people towards their own discovery of what can actually help them. So that's an excellent point to finish this session of stories of facilitating software design and architecture, which is, we keep changing the name. Yay!
Yeah.
Kim, it's been wonderful to have you. And as usual, thank you to my co-conspirators, Kenny and Andrew. We'll see you next time at Virtual DDD.
Okay, thank you. That's my pleasure.
Thank you.